Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Max, and today we are going to go over, unbox, and install the Studiofinix 6.5-inch two-way waterproof indoor-outdoor speakers. Specifically, I want to be going over the do-it-yourself install onto the siding of my house above my outdoor back deck in this video. And these are designed solely for Bluetooth receiving, so no amp is going to be required as a part of this install. And I'm going to give you my first impressions of what I think of this product. Now, full disclosure, Studiofinix was nice enough to send me these outdoor speakers complimentary to do a review of them. The company actually offers a wide range of audio products. So with the holidays around the corner, these could be great gifts for your friends or family, and coupled with Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals that are currently active, there's a potential for a ton of savings for some high quality equipment, making it a very budget friendly option for someone who's looking to take the next step with their audio setup. In addition, Studiofinix actually provided me with a promo code specifically for my viewers. If you enter the code MightyMax, all one word at checkout, you can get an additional 10% off on whatever you have in your cart. I will also include the affiliate link that they set up for me in the description below if you prefer to use that. Using my code also supports this channel, which allows me to continue making content like this. So any use of that is much appreciated, and thank you as always for your support. Finally, I will also include a product link to their Amazon page if you prefer to use that purchase option. Just know that you won't necessarily be able to use my discount code if you go the Amazon route. Now, enough business, let's get into the unboxing. All right, getting into the box, you can see we have this Studiofinix logo. We have a description of what we actually have in here. Let's just dig right in. All right. Once we remove the protective foam, we have the speakers obviously right here at the top. They are very large. So we have both the left and right speaker. The box also came with directions for those speakers. We have our power brick, the power cable to run to that brick. We have our left and right connections that go from one speaker to the next. These and all the wires included are supposed to be rated to be weatherproof. And then it looks like we have an additional DC power adapter that wires directly into the speakers if necessary. So beyond that, there's nothing else in the box. So since we are going to be mounting these to the wall, we will have to provide our own hardware to fit within this bracket. Luckily, I have some things that should work for that, but that is something too important to note that with this set, it does not include mounting hardware beyond the bracket attached to the speakers. You'll have to get your own screws and other such materials. So we'll go over that next. So the first thing that I do anytime I get equipment like this is test it out to make sure it actually works before doing any kind of hard install. And with the Studiofinix speakers, this really couldn't be more simple. First, I connected my two speakers together using the provided audio wires. This is as easy as unscrewing the input caps on the back of each speaker, threading the exposed portion of your audio wiring through the hole, and screwing that cap back into place. Just make sure you're running red to red and black to black on both speakers, and you are good to go for this part of the setup. The speaker set that they provided me is actually designed to have one passive and one active speaker in terms of power. In this case, the left speaker is designated to be the one with the power input. So I just have to plug this into the wall, connect my phone to test out the sound and confirm that we are good to go for install. And yep, everything worked. So we are good to move forward. So this kit does come with the option of using either a AC/DC wall connection plug for your power or a 12 volt DC hardwire connection if you're gonna run wiring into something into the wall. As I'm not using the hardwire connection, I use the wall connector for my power, but just know that you have that option if you're planning on hardwiring your speakers in versus using an outdoor plug. From here, I moved on to choosing a location for my install. My deck is about 10 to 30 feet and sits slightly skewed to the left side of my yard, so I ended up deciding to mount them horizontally about 15 feet apart, just above my head level, about 6 to 7 feet off of the deck. Now, the instructions do state that for best sound quality, they recommend just above ear level and 8 feet apart. So keep that in mind for your install, that those give you the best quality. I, however, went for what looked best on my deck, along with appropriate spacing for how my deck was laid out in terms of the entertainment space. This is also a good time to talk about the limitations when it comes to the in-box wiring. The wire that's provided for the connection between the two speakers is about 16 feet long, so that means that the distance you can spread out the speakers, given what comes in the box, is limited to that length. The directions state you can, however, swap this wire out with the store-bought wiring of up to 50 feet, as long as that wiring is weatherproof, so keep that in mind if you want to purchase another option to utilize for the install. Then comes the power wiring. Since I was not doing any electrical work into the wall, that means I need to deal with the power brick that comes along with the plug-in wire. Now, while this is 6 to 7 feet long, it presents a problem with hiding the wire since you have a massive power brick about halfway through your wiring setup that you have to tuck away somewhere. Also, the power brick itself is labeled indoor only, meaning that you should not be getting that wet. Kind of an interesting choice for outdoor speakers in my opinion. So for these two reasons, I had to make 2 additional purchases before I could start my install. First, I purchased a DC power extender so that I would have an extension to run to the speaker down to the power brick that was much longer and easier to hide, giving me flexibility to where to store the power brick itself. The second thing I purchased was a waterproof electrical connection box to store all of the connections and power to keep them safe from the weather or other elements. I'll go ahead and link both of the products I purchased in the description below if you're interested in purchasing these as a part of your installation or setup. They were incredibly helpful with getting to the locations that I needed and keeping my connections safe from the weather. Further, since the kit comes with no installation hardware beyond the brackets that hold the speakers, I also needed screws to mount the brackets, silicone caulk for door and window sealing to add some extra sealant around where you drill into your house. I needed a drill bit to create a clean pilot hole to drill into, a ladder, a level, and of course a pencil for marking. So once I decided where I wanted my speakers, it was time to mark the bracket locations. You definitely want to make sure that you are drilling into a stud when picking a location to make sure that you have a very secure connection. Now I kind of cheated when it comes to ensuring my speakers were leveled and evenly spaced. Since I have horizontal siding, I simply chose to align the bracket with the bottom edge of the siding, and doing so not only kept me level for the single bracket, but when mounting my second one, I could simply follow that piece of siding horizontally along my wall and make sure that it lined up evenly with the same piece. If you don't have the luxury of this type of siding, you'll have to measure vertical distance from the ground to whatever height that you are targeting for these speakers. I also recommend that you recruit a friend to help you hold up the speakers while they're wired together to ensure that where you're mounting them actually is adequate for the distance that you're limited to with the connecting wire. My wife and I did this together to ensure that when the speakers were spaced, we had enough wire to cover that distance. Once you're good with your install location, remove the speakers from their bracket, hold the bracket up to the given space where you want them. When they're at the right height and they're level, mark the screw locations in the bracket with your pencil. Then take down your bracket and use the appropriate drill bit to screw into your siding to create pilot holes into the house's siding. This will create a cleaner hole into your siding versus if you just went and put the screws directly in to mount the bracket. From here, you drill in your screws, leaving about 1/4 inch of protruding space to slide on the bracket itself. This is the point where if you want to have a more waterproof connection to your house, you would add in caulk around the screw for the added protection and seal from the elements. I actually ended up skipping this step since I felt the screws I used would create a tight enough seal that the likelihood of water damage was minimal, but please do so at your own risk. It is definitely always recommended to create more of a seal than less to prevent water damage. From here, I added back on my mount, tightening the screws as needed until the bracket was securely in place. And finally, I added back on the speakers, screwing back on the attachments and making sure that the mount looked good with everything all installed. Now for my install, my goal was to run the wiring along the seams in the siding and various trims in such a way that I could tuck it into the siding and hide the connections. I specifically chose my locations in terms of height and distance to achieve this. Therefore, before installing my second bracket, I started this process. All the way along to the other speaker, I slowly fed the wiring into my chosen seam in the siding to ensure that my spacing was correct and left me with enough slack. Essentially, the location of the first speaker dictated the end spot of the second. Once I had that spot identified, I marked it on the wall and removed the bracket and repeated all the steps I'd previously done. Now onto power. The wire extension that I purchased was 30 feet long, so it gave me plenty of flexibility to run the power wherever I wanted without having to deal with that power brick. To make hiding the wire easier, I continued to run it along the siding seam, similar to the other wire, until I got to my door trim. Your door and window trim has a pretty big gap that I was easily able to feed the wire around, so I was able to do this down to the base of the deck to hide it from view, where I could then run it along to where I needed to store my power box. And with that, I plugged it in and I was done. One of the final steps here was to go around and do touch-up to make sure that the wire was adequately hid. For the siding, I was able to press it up most of the way with my fingertips and then finished inserting it into that seam by using the top of a pair of needle nose pliers. And you can see that you can barely tell there's any wiring here unless you're really looking for it. Once all that was done, all I had to do was plug in the outlet and turn the power on, and we were good to go to use these speakers. And let me tell you, these things work great. I actually have to keep the volume down below 30% at all times because of how well they project. The sound quality is crisp, and the surround sound effect, especially when you're standing right between them, is fantastic. You can clearly hear music even from the furthest parts of our yard. Installation, as you saw, was incredibly simple, so I would definitely recommend these to anyone who's trying to get this type of setup without having to pay for someone to mount these professionally. If I were to have any cons, it would have to do with the wiring limitations with the power adapter. I'm sure the intent when using the outdoor capabilities of these speakers was to utilize the hardwired connection it comes with, but given that wasn't my method of installation, I wish the power supply had come with a longer cable for more flexibility and also had a power brick that was rated for outdoor use. Now again, as you saw, this was very easily overcome with about $20 in Amazon purchases, but it's still something to consider when making this purchase. Also, with this particular set, you're limited to Bluetooth connection for audio input, but Studiofinix does have many other configurations if you're trying to go more advanced and want to use an amp. It just happens to be what I received, so really, if you want to do something other than purely Bluetooth speakers for your outdoor setup, you would just choose a different product option. Finally, these speakers do not have an on or off button, so my phone would often connect to them if they were plugged in without me wanting it to. I worked around this by adding a power strip with smart plugs to my adapter setup, which was very easy to do and only cost me about 10 bucks for the outlets. Now I can use my phone to switch the speakers on and off when I need them versus having to manage the Bluetooth settings on my phone or else having to hard unplug the outlet every time I want to avoid my phone connecting randomly. And all those things are easy to overcome nits in my opinion. I would honestly think that you'd be hard pressed to get this high quality of speakers for that price tag that are that easy to do a permanent wall mounted install with. Honestly, for under $200, being able to do a do-it-yourself permanent outdoor speaker install for your entertainment space can't be beat. It would cost well over $1,000 to have this done professionally, and I was able to do the entire setup in under a half an hour with products that would have run me under 200 bucks. So like I said before, I do highly recommend this setup. And again, if you're interested in any of the products that Studiofinix has to offer, please use my promo code MightyMax at checkout to get that 10% off. This is a great gift just in time for the holidays. But yeah, that's all I had today. If you like this content and you want to see more, please like, comment, and subscribe to see more. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time.